always begins with something small, something ordinary, something that feels like it could never grow into the nightmare that follows. And in this case it started with a simple emergency call made on a cold, wind-rattled night that should have been like any other. The dispatcher picked up, expecting a routine disturbance, maybe a neighbor complaint or a missing pet. But instead, a panicked voice whispered something that even the most experienced operator later admitted still haunts them. "Please, someone is in my house. I can hear him breathing." There was no screaming, no chaos, just a trembling whisper, and the unmistakable sound of pure terror. It was a call that ended abruptly, and what investigators eventually found inside that house would leave even the hardest officers shaken for years to come. The victim, 27-year-old Marissa Lane, lived alone in a quiet neighborhood, one of those places where nothing ever happens, where people leave their doors unlocked, and the loudest sound at night is the occasional dog barking at shadows. Marissa was known for her calm personality, her gentle nature, and her habit of keeping to herself. She wasn't surrounded by drama, didn't have enemies, didn't owe anyone money, and wasn't involved in anything dangerous. Her life was ordinary to the point of being uneventful, and that's exactly why what happened defies all logic. Because when investigators walked into her home, they didn't find signs of a struggle, no forced entry, and no obvious motive, but they did find something else. Something so disturbing that several officers needed to step outside for air. The house was too quiet, too still. Her living room looked frozen in time. A half-finished cup of tea, a book lying open on the couch, a blanket kicked to the floor as if she had just stood up abruptly. Nothing looked stolen, nothing appeared broken, and yet something felt wrong the moment investigators stepped inside. The air felt heavy, suffocating, and the silence felt unnatural, like the house itself was holding its breath. They called her name several times, their voices echoing against the walls, but no one answered. As they moved deeper into the hallway, the tension grew thicker, and finally at the end of that quiet corridor, they found the door to her bedroom slightly open, as if someone had slipped inside just moments before they arrived. What they saw inside has never been fully released to the public, but what is known is this. Marissa was found sitting upright on the edge of her bed, her eyes wide open, frozen in a look of absolute terror. There were no signs that she had been physically harmed, no bruises, no cuts, nothing that pointed to an assault. The room wasn't ransacked, and nothing pointed toward a burglary gone wrong. But the expression on her face was enough to chill anyone's blood. Several detectives later described it as the most terrified expression they'd ever seen on a victim who had no visible injuries. The chilling part, her body temperature suggested she had died only minutes before officers arrived, even though the call had been made nearly 20 minutes earlier. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. How could someone die in such terror without anyone hearing a struggle? How could an intruder enter a locked house without forcing their way in? And if someone had been inside with her, where had they gone? The house had only one entrance, and officers were on the scene almost immediately after the dropped call. There was no time for escape. No windows were open. No footprints were found outside. It was as if whoever or whatever had been in the house simply vanished. Investigators combed through the home inch by inch and found one detail that made the entire case even more disturbing. On the nightstand beside her bed sat an old, outdated flip phone. Not her phone, but something she had found earlier that week in the grass outside her front door. She had mentioned it to a co-worker 2 days before her death, saying she planned to keep it until someone came looking for it. At first, no one thought anything of it, but investigators soon discovered that the phone had been turned on shortly before the emergency call. Even more chilling, its last outgoing call had been made a week prior to Marissa's own number. That meant the person who owned that phone had contacted her days before she found it. And yet, no one had stepped forward to claim it. When digital forensics got involved, things only grew stranger. The phone contained no photos, no messages, no contacts, just a single audio file. The file was corrupted, impossible to open at first, but after hours of work, technicians finally managed to recover part of it. What they heard caused the room to fall silent. The audio captured faint breathing, slow at first, then gradually turning into deep, unsettling breaths. as though someone or something was standing inches away from the microphone. At the very end of the clip, there was a soft whisper, barely audible but clear enough once enhanced. It said, "I found you." Investigators struggled to piece together the connection between the phone and Marissa's death, but then, another discovery turned the case upside down. A neighbor's security camera positioned across the street, angled toward her home, had captured footage from the night of the incident. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the camera recorded Marissa stepping outside her house, barefoot, her hair messy, looking confused as if she was searching for something. She stood on her porch for nearly 30 seconds, staring into the distance, then suddenly turned her head sharply to the left, as if something or someone had whispered directly into her ear. Her entire body stiffened. She froze, then backed slowly into her house, closing the door behind her. That was the last time she was seen alive. But the most terrifying detail wasn't her unusual behavior. It was what the camera caught 5 seconds after she went back inside. At the far edge of the frame, right near the tree line across the road, the camera captured a tall, dark silhouette standing motionless. No identifiable features, no movement, no sign of a face, just a shape. A shape that hadn't been there before and wasn't there a moment later. Investigators enhanced the footage, slowed it down, analyzed pixel by pixel, but they still couldn't explain what they were seeing. The figure didn't match the proportions of an average human. Its limbs seemed elongated, and the way it disappeared without movement, without stepping away, made no logical sense. This wasn't a person stepping behind a tree. This was something else. Something that shouldn't exist. And yet, it was right there on camera. In the days that followed, investigators tried to approach the case from every rational angle they could think of. Intruder, stalker, psychological distress, medical anomaly, but nothing fit. Every theory collapsed under its own weight. There was no forced entry, no fingerprints, no foreign DNA, no signs of poison, and no indication of a medical episode. And yet Marissa's face, frozen in raw terror, told a story louder than any physical evidence ever could. Something had frightened her to death. Something she saw, heard or felt in those final moments was powerful enough to stop her heart instantly. But what could do that without leaving a trace? Detectives revisited the audio file from the strange flip phone. They enhanced it further, isolating background frequencies, removing white noise, and amplifying the whisper at the end. After hours of work, they discovered something hidden beneath the breathing, something no one had noticed at first. There were faint footsteps, slow and deliberate, circling the phone as if someone were walking around the person recording, but the pattern didn't match normal human movement. It was offbeat, irregular, almost like whatever was moving didn't walk the way people do. The steps would suddenly pause, then shift, then slide, as if something heavy was dragging across the ground. The whisper itself became even more disturbing, with enhancement. It wasn't just a simple, "I found you." Experts realized it contained multiple layers, like more than one voice speaking at the same time, male, female, something else entirely blended together to create a sound that made listeners' skin crawl. It was as if the whisper wasn't human at all, and yet it carried intention, it carried awareness, it carried a message meant specifically for her. Investigators expanded the scope and began interviewing neighbors. Most reported nothing unusual, but one elderly man, living just 2 houses away, said something that made officers' blood run cold. He explained that for the past week, he had heard knocking sounds late at night, always around the same time, always coming from outside, moving from house to house, as if someone was wandering the street tapping on walls. He had assumed it was teenagers or an animal, but on the night Marissa died, he heard something else. Something he couldn't explain. He said he was sitting by his window when he heard a soft tapping on the glass, but the tapping didn't come from the ground level. It came from the upper corner of the window, almost 8 feet off the ground. He didn't see anyone when he looked, but he did see something strange. His yard lights flickered, as if something huge passed in front of them. He wanted to report it, but he convinced himself he imagined it. Only after Marissa's death did he realize something darker might have been happening on their street. Investigators dug deeper into her final days, searching for any clue that could tell them what she was experiencing. Her internet search history revealed something unexpected. 3 days before her death, she had searched phrases like, "What does it mean when someone watches your house at night? How to know if someone is inside your home, and waking up because someone is staring at me." These searches suggested that she had been feeling watched long before the emergency call. But she didn't tell friends, didn't report it, and didn't change her routine. She kept living as if everything was fine, even though something had clearly begun to unsettle her. What happened next took the investigation into even darker territory. Detectives obtained her smart home data, including audio logs recorded by her voice assistant device. The device wasn't activated by her voice, but it still captured random environmental sounds. One file stood out, a recording from 2 nights before her death. At precisely 3:07 a.m., the device captured a quiet thump from somewhere inside the house, followed by a faint rustling sound. Then came something much more chilling, a long, slow breath, recorded from right next to the device, even though Marissa herself was fast asleep at the other end of the house. The breath wasn't hers. It had a depth to it, a weight, almost like the lungs behind it were too large, too heavy, too unnatural for a human. When investigators enhanced that clip, they realized the breath wasn't alone. There was a faint growling undertone beneath it. Something alive, something aware, and something incredibly close to her while she slept. By now, even the most skeptical investigators were beginning to feel uneasy. They weren't just dealing with a break-in or a stalker. They were dealing with something that didn't match anything they had ever seen before. Something that could enter a locked house without breaking anything. Something that could stand inches away from someone without leaving a trace. Something that watched. Something that waited. Something that whispered. Then came the most disturbing discovery of all. Forensics returned with additional analysis on the silhouette captured by the neighbor's security camera. While the image was low quality, technicians used motion amplification, contrast mapping, and environmental modeling to extract hidden details. What they found shocked everyone. The figure wasn't just standing still, it was bending slightly forward as if leaning toward the house, watching Marissa as she stood on her porch. Its shoulders were unnaturally broad, its limbs too long, and its outline didn't match human anatomy. Worst of all, its shadow didn't behave like a normal shadow. It didn't follow the angles of the streetlights. It extended in a direction that made no sense, almost like it wasn't fully bound by the environment around it. Investigators decided to broaden the search radius. That's when they found something chilling near the edge of the woods behind her neighborhood. A single, bare footprint, pressed deep into the mud, far deeper than what a human could leave. It was elongated, misshapen, with claw-like impressions at the front instead of toes. Whatever made that footprint wasn't normal. And it wasn't small. But the strangest part, there were no other prints leading to or away from it. Just one, as if something had stood there watching the houses, and then vanished. By this point, officers were beginning to feel the psychological weight of the case. Several requested transfers. One detective admitted privately that he had trouble sleeping at night, because every time he closed his eyes he heard the whisper from the audio file, echoing in his head. And for the first time in his entire career, he felt like he wasn't hunting a suspect. He was being watched by something he couldn't understand. Despite all the evidence, the official report gave no explanation, no suspect, no cause of death, no motive, nothing. Just a chilling conclusion: Marissa died from sudden cardiac arrest, triggered by extreme terror, a terror caused by something the investigation could not identify. But the people in that neighborhood know the truth. They know what they saw, what they heard, and what still lurks in the corners of their memories. Some say the figure still appears on certain nights, standing at the tree line, watching, waiting, searching for someone new to find. And to this day, no one knows what really entered Marissa's home that night. No one knows what whispered to her. And no one knows where it went after she died. But whatever it was, it never left.